quite into kind of Motown and kind of messing with different fashions at school, mod and stuff, and then I discovered reggae music really at about age 12, and had a kind of pivotal moment when I went to see Aswad play at the Lyceum, and that was a big moment for me of thinking, yeah, that's what I want to be.
Keep it chatter, I've got to fly. Truth is the way of the bird and fly.
I'm from a family of 3 brothers, I'm the youngest of 3, and all of them are musicians. So yeah, that was what I started off listening to, and that was where the kind of my first proper love, which was reggae music, began.
If I allow it, you'll destroy me. Playing all your power games.
When I was 15, I went to my first Jah Shaker session in Northampton at the MFN Club, and that was it. And I was totally kind of struck by the bug and followed Shaker around really for a few years, and that was my main obsession. I wasn't really playing much drums then, apart from in my room, and I was just very into kind of collecting music and following him around really. When I was 18, I left England and I went to live in New York. First, I kind of wanted to go over there for no particular reason, apart from I wasn't really doing that much in the UK. And while I was there, I started playing drums for a reggae band called the Rebel Souls, we played a lot of gigs supporting everyone you can think of reggae-wise on the East Coast, and a bit further in, but generally around New York, Boston, Philly, Washington. You know, supporting Burning Spear, Dennis Brown, you name them, we were supporting them. And then we signed to Coxsone, to Studio One, and we had a record out on that, and that was a pretty big moment for us as a band. And Coxsone bought me my Simmons drum kit, which was a pretty amazing thing, because famously not renowned for giving away much money. So that was quite a kind of funny moment. And I did bits of work for Coxsone afterwards, kind of programming a bit of LinnDrum, which is an old drum machine, over old tracks. He was kind of keen on that as his first, I guess, as he was venturing into the digital world, cautiously.
How can we stop this deceiving? Nothing left to believe in. Everybody looking around for the way out.
Yeah, I came back to the UK in 1990, and I've been in New York for about 4.5 years, which was quite a big transition for me coming back. You know, you think the grass is greener, and then you come back and it's actually not quite as green as you maybe thought it was. But that was a better time, in, you know, different and better financially opportunities in the music business then, and started by doing kind of remixes. Got a bit of a lucky break with one tune that was quite big, and I was kind of doing all kinds of things. And then I became friends with Nick Manasseh. That was in 1990, and we started doing some music together. And that kind of developed into Riz Records. Within that next year we started doing, and then me and him were kind of working quite solidly together, and I was pretty much living in Kentish Town but spending all my time at his studio in Brixton, and with his family, who was almost like part of my family. You know, I was very close with them, and yeah, that was how that kind of started, and I was kind of locked into that. Although I was still playing drums for a band that was signed, that was a kind of rocky indie band and a big funk band. You know, I was kind of doing other things, but I was definitely entrenched more in making records in a certain way, but in a partnership as well. So it's, you know, it's just a two-way thing in a partnership with its very good points, and you know, and we remain good friends to this day, me and Nick, which is nice, you know, because then further down the line we stopped working, and I just kind of wanted to come out of reggae a bit, and I felt like that's what I'd been doing solidly, and wanted to expand what I did.
Me, I tell you long time, don't you send no threat. You a little baby bird who has no feathers yet.
There were two other people, Matt Gilchrist and Rocksteady Eddie, and it was fun and exciting to do, and it was our label, and we had plans, and we were doing more Jamaican artists. That was quite fun, and quite exciting. I guess it's just the kind of discovery as well, and there's always the potential, and the potential of what might happen. But at the same time, it's hard because you also discover, it's not easy, and it's a road of discovery. But fun to have the label, and a big thrill to work with artists that we'd loved. I'd already had some of that in New York through the Coxon thing, and met, I'd just been around a lot of reggae people that had been kind of heroes on LP covers to me. And those were not the days of the internet, you couldn't see YouTube videos of people, it just didn't happen. They were kind of mystical characters, and suddenly they were real characters. And me and Nick had the fun of doing those all, but we also had other things. We used to do quite a lot of specials for sound systems, so we had, I guess maybe the most thrilling day is we did doing a day with Dennis Brown, who is my all-time favourite singer. And that's a magical, within reggae, that's a magical moment for me, because I really, passionately love that voice. I was doing kind of various different productions with people and some remixes, and I guess I was slightly trying to find where I was going, and at that point I signed a publishing deal, my first publishing deal, as a songwriter, as a kind of, I don't know, it was a bit unclear really what I was, just because I was doing lots of things. I was strangely working with Drummy Zeb's son for a while, and I wrote a song with that for Aswad, because my brother is also a writer and he wrote quite a lot for Aswad. And then I kind of was signed to basically a part of EMI called Hit and Run Music, and I started to write songs for other people, and that for a few years was kind of the main focus of what I was doing, and in a way I kind of honed my songwriting craft and learnt and got to write with a lot of big people in that world. And I worked with an act called Dry as a Bone as a production unit, did a couple of albums with that, and then I started working with another guy, and we started doing a lot of pop production at a pretty awful time of pop music, really, the kind of turn of the century. But you got paid well, so that was a bit steering, a kind of easy choice to make. You've been working in music and kind of just making it work. So when things are better, it's like if you just keep working, you don't really have time to think about what you're working on. But those weren't really times musically that I look back on and think, oh yeah, it was great. But there were other good things out of that. And then I had a big break where I wrote a song for Michael Jackson, and that was obviously a big kind of thrilling moment in that time. Strange character as he is, but I was musically a massive Michael Jackson fan. I mean, from young, so it was really a kind of, a big moment for me. It wasn't quite as big as I had hoped, kind of financially afterwards, but as a musical, I think it was probably an unbeatable dream come true. Don't think I'll ever get that kind of excitement again. Just came about through my publishers that the song was recorded by someone else. What happened? Yeah, the song was recorded by someone else. They were signed to Atlantic Records. They got dropped. They went to see a lawyer about a producer who she represented called Teddy Riley, who's a big producer, who produced a fair bit of Michael Jackson. He heard it and thought this would be a great song for Michael, and took it to Michael. They cut it. They cut 200 songs for the Invincible album and picked 16, and through, you know, good luck and fortune, and that, you know, like with all things, there's a fair amount of that, it made it onto the record, and it went on to sell, you know, kind of 10-12 million copies, and it was great. I mean, sadly, they only released a couple of singles out of that, because it was good. It was him and Santana, who was another act that I'd been kind of like, wow, you know. So yeah, it was very exciting, that for me, and great. And you know, I thought more was probably going to come off the back of it, but also it's funny, you know, the musical journey is not always exactly where you think it's going to go. You know, I think that's a big thing that a lot of people will have experienced, and people that are starting off on it maybe will experience down the line. You know, you have to steer your path differently. And you know, there's hindsight as well. Sometimes you look back, you think, oh, maybe I should have done that, but you know, it's all a juggle, isn't it? It's all trying to stay alive and earn a living, if that's what you're trying to do, which sometimes maybe is what puts you in a difficult position, because you got to eat, and yet maybe the music you love is not, you know, financially viable to do that and make that work, and those can be difficult things within music, I would say.
Just don't let go of my hand.
It was always people like, oh, things have got a kind of bit of a reggae feel, and for a while it kind of used to get on my nerves, to be honest with you, because I was like, I slightly wanted to, it's not I wanted to distance myself from it, but I just felt like it had been too much. It had just been too much, all this one thing. Whereas actually, in a way, you know, I don't know, I maybe could have pushed it more in other times. But when did it kind of start coming back? I mean, I did the odd thing, and you know, sometimes I'd knock out a tune for someone or this and that, but it was definitely a very much side thing. And then a few years ago, I don't know how long we've actually been doing it now, 2-3 years? Yeah, I guess it's maybe the 3rd year of something. An old friend of mine called Jake Travis, who I knew from school days. He went to another school from me, but I kind of knew him then, but I actually hadn't seen him for years and years. Came to me and said, do you fancy doing a tune? I want to start a label. He has a record shop in Camden, and he buys and sells old reggae as well. And I was like, yeah, why not? It's that, you know, like, let's try a thing where it's like, maybe we could do it like a classic rhythm and put a different classic vocal on it, like a bit of an angle. And so I did that. The first one I did was a version of Truths and Rights with Ramon Judah, and yeah, did it on the kind of bad boy rhythm, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of laugh, and there was a really good response, and I thought, you know, yeah, I thought it's actually just quite fun, and it was just so kind of, easy is the wrong word, but instinctual would be. And it's just like, often with music, you're like trying to get it right, and you're trying to, you know, find the way, but when it just comes, you know, if it feels right, you just know it. You know, there's no other words. It's just, you know, I'm always saying to people, you can't fake the funk, and it is true. You can't fake it. You know, what you are into will come across in your music, because it's a true love. So it's like me saying, like, yeah, I want to make these kind of techno records. It's like, well, I can do all that musically. I could do what it is required to do, but it's got to come from the passion. And in that kind of music, it's about arrangement, and you've got to dig it, and that's what you've got to stay with. You know, you can't fake it, man. You know, and I think that shows, to be honest with you, in most music. It's like a great band will be a great band because they love what they do. And I think that's the same as producers, you know. You know, that was an initial idea which became slightly, I think that went away fairly quickly, was doing kind of rhythms, me redoing some rhythms and then putting some other famous tunes on top of them, or, you know, just trying to, like a kind of mashup but a redone mashup. But I think I kind of maybe became a bit bored of that soon after. But we started, and then a couple in, we did the first one that I think really kind of tore it up, which was Battlefield by Robert Lee, and that was really big, and everyone kind of flipped out, and it was quite a mad thing. I'd been doing that rhythm, which is originally the Praise His Name Barrington Levy rhythm, and Robert Lee came in to do the session, and he was just singing that tune, and the original thing, and I was like, oh, I've just been doing that rhythm. And then he did it, he voiced it, and he voiced another one, and then I kind of worked on it, and then when him and Jake came back and heard it, whenever that was, because he came back to do something else for us, and it was just a really good moment, because both of them were a bit like,
Real champion, my soul has done, we are the real number one. Don't ask we name or where we come from. All you want to know that we are real champion. The taps we play, you cannot play back.
one of the good things about Tuff Scout, apart from, you know, hopefully the equality and people enjoying it, is that we've just been putting out a lot of stuff, and we're kind of that. If anything, that's slightly the ethos, is to just get catalogue out there and build it up, and you know, you do a limited run vinyl wise. It's now they're all now downloadable, and you know, kind of try and get good artists and try and make it exciting, as well as, you know, picking up some things from some other people around the place, so it's a bit of a different style. For me though, making records, I think from a lot of time of making pop records as well, you know, when you're making pop records, you're always trying to think of like, there's no downtime, you know, it's got to be, everything's got to be exciting, and there's got to be a kind of reason and then a step up, and you know, which is kind of different in some ways to a lot of reggae music in that way. So I think I've slightly brought my kind of pop production back into my reggae sense, and so if there's any time where I'm bored, I'm kind of looking for what I would call ear candy, you know, it's something to happen, and those are the kind of records I want to make, you know, they're like, to me they're exciting. I'm sure everyone wouldn't agree that all of them are, but that's kind of how I think I naturally work. And also I'm about making musical records, you know, I'm from a musical perspective. I don't dig kind of one finger music, and I'm not knocking people for what they like. I think a lot of it is, as we discussed before, sound system based, you know, that when you play a lot of things really loud, it sounds pretty good, especially if you're a bit out of it as well, which occasionally obviously some people are. But just, you know, it's music, and I think the great thing that's happened through computers has made people have access and people can make things, but you know, people need to know what their chord, you know, they need to know chords and have a bit of an understanding of music, melody, harmony, and so it's not just kind of plink plink plonk and, you know, it's all good, you know, that's cool, but I just need more for that, and those aren't the records that I want to make. So, and I think, not that I've, you know, I've probably missed out on quite a few years of like a British reggae dub scene, but I would say the dub side of it, to me, the bits that I often have heard have sound very kind of, you know, limited in their musical scope and about the kind of heaviness, maybe slightly more in a kind of techno-y way. You know, I mean, it's all about what you like, isn't it? And I really don't want to be judgmental of it. It's what you like, isn't it? But for me, musicality is of A1 importance, because those are the records I loved, and those are the records that are influencing those that are making dub music now. You know, people could play and people could sing. And that's also a part of, isn't it, singing? It's a bit like people are like the X Factor. You know, it's given a certain view to what singing is, and I don't know, it's kind of, it's a pretty double-edged sword. It's like, oh, it's no big deal and it's not hard, but actually, you know, it is. It's about talent and passion and quality of musicianship or vocalship, as it should be for producers too.
My
We've got one I'm very excited about with Carleen Anderson, who's a singer, an amazing singer, stepdaughter of Bobby Bird from the James Brown band, and yeah, that's kind of a special thing, because I'm quite interested in expanding it to bring in some other people onto proper reggae tunes, not designed as like crossover, not aiming for that, keeping it true to what it is and what the love is from, but to maybe I can open it up to some different worlds. So I've got a few of those in the pipeline, which I will wait to see and see if they come. But yeah, another one after that that's exciting. But yeah, Rodigan played the Carleen one the other night and was really on it. And yeah, so that feels exciting to me, you know, as that's a slightly pushing, that's what I would like to do. I think lyrically as well, reggae needs to be more expansive than it has been for a long time. It kind of becomes very set in kind of like almost like a Rasta lyrics or reality lyrics or a kind of girl lyrics or a love lyrics, and it's kind of, I just think there was more openness before, and it seems to have been a bit closed. So I think that is something I'd like to push as well, you know, just generally try and raise the bar, which I think, you know, there are some good people out. And now I've listened a bit more, I realise there are some other good things as well coming out, and I think that's good all round, you know.
People, we need love. Yeah, now.
Why does it not get played on the radio? I don't know. It's a marginalised, small, looked at as a small kind of genre, which it's a strange thing because it isn't. I think there was quite a lot of outrage when David Rodigan left Kiss, where they tried to put him in the middle of the night, and now he's doing his one extra show. But you know, it can't all be on Rodigan as well. You know, he's a kind of, you know, he's been the stalwart of British reggae for so long, and you know, no, I can't. I don't know whether I can really answer that. Experience. The straight up music business is very strange how it all happens in it, and most acts these days, they need to develop so much on their own before a record company is throwing the money into them properly to make something happen. Yeah, occasionally, if you haven't come through a TV show, like if people go and try and get a record deal, generally they get some money and it might give like them some development money and tell them to come back in 18 months once they've built up their Twitter and Facebook social media profile and they're doing a lot of gigs and this and that. And I think, you know, reggae has remained on this kind of its outskirts slightly of it all. But you know, as I say, people love reggae, so I think every now and again something comes through, and it never sadly seems to be able to capitalise on that and make it more, you know, I don't know, you know, there's been some, hasn't there? There's been the Damian Marleys, and of late, I mean, although sadly there again it's still associated to the Marley family. And I don't mean sadly, you know, that's one of the greatest artists ever, undoubtedly. But it does seem limited that that's what it takes to bring it through. And they're always like, oh yeah, much as Damian Marley's wicked, but you know, there are some other wicked acts, and why can't they cross that over a bit, especially in America, because that in the last while they've dug it more.
Love, that's what we need. Hey.
And yeah, I've kind of got more and more. I've gone back to having the kit in my room, which I didn't have for ages. Much as I actually can't believe I didn't, but I was just more into programming, and that's been fantastic. And I have the Rhodes and the organ, and I play quite a lot of bass now. And I kind of struggle through on guitar a bit, although that's, you know, as someone that hits things more coming from that, I find the guitar side difficult to do. But yeah, I program, I work on Logic, and I've got a, you know, pretty large library-wise, of instruments, sample library. So I do a lot of that, and I do much more live recording now than I used to. I do a lot of backing vocals for a lot of the stuff, and I have a pretty big network of musician friends, so some things I send them around and get other people to play on them in these great modern technology times, and they throw them back to me, you know, from horns and percussion and guitars and kind of whatever. Really, I think it's quite a nice thing about now in the kind of favours, and I do other things for people. I've got a piano that I use next door, grand piano. Yeah, so I've got much more into combining that, because I think that live instruments give music a 3D-ness that is sorely lacking in a lot of things that I hear. And I think that is that's almost the plinkly plonk thing I'm talking about, is that, you know, it's easy, have a computer, have Logic on it, you've got these sounds, but it is very flat, and I think that comes across in a lot of music that you hear. So for me, yeah, it's about making the whole picture and making it feel like it's got depth. So yeah, I do quite a lot of live stuff, and I like playing. So that's actually another reason, like, as opposed to even, you know, you're going to play a Rhodes part on the chorus, well, I'll like play it on all the choruses, as opposed to do it, chop it, copy and paste it, because actually I like playing, you know, much as I don't go out and kind of gig anymore. You know, that is, you know, I don't know, that's a thing of, you know, the musical side, you know, it is something that I enjoy. And I do, you know, I also do a lot of stuff for TV, and that's a really wide remit of all kinds of different musical styles. I mean, really across the board. So I enjoy that as well, because it's quite challenging, you know. Got to come up with some kind of folky thing, or a jazzy thing, or a classical thing, or a ska-y thing, or a rocky thing, you know, dance. You know, it's just, I like the challenge of that as well, and that as well makes you kind of have to get in there and kind of work stuff out, as opposed to what comes naturally to you. And then I have the actual art of songwriting, which is still big to me, and I do a few projects on that, you know, keep my hand in, because in a way I'd love to do that every day, because that is, you know, one of my first loves, as well as the production. I love writing songs.
Would you happier in the studio than on stage?
Yeah, I never really liked the stage. I'm too much of a perfectionist. Well, that's what I tell myself anyway, but yeah, I never found it. I would always come off stage and be like, oh shit, fucked up there and this and that, where everyone else was like, yeah, wicked, that was great. Let's go and try and find some girls. And I'd be like, I just used to find myself getting quite down on it and being like, yeah, you know, having to go at this, but why did you mess up the intro on blah blah? And it's like, so I guess in studio, maybe I'm just a control freak, so there you go. So I just prefer the control of the studio. I think probably the things I get to play really now, the Rhodes and the piano I love. I love this Hofner bass. I've got a great mic which always delivers for me. It's a Neumann 149, so it's from the times of spending some money. And no, I mean, I don't have much old gear. You know, like an amp, the AC30, nice Fender Jazz there. This sounds wicked. That does sound really wicked. The old Korg, it's got really great, the drawbars. You know, it's all got that dirt that makes it all have a difference. But if I want to use more analog gear, outboard wise, I will go to somewhere else where I've got quite a lot of mates with quite a lot of that stuff. One of the guys called Demas, he's an old mate of mine, and he has a really kind of retro studio, and he mixes some of the dubs for Tuff Scout. Sometimes he does, other times I do them here, but and that's who I've done the dub album with. And so yeah, so there's enough of that about, and I think for me, I'm about recording, and I'm from a musician point of view, so that's maybe more why that's what I get excited about. It's obviously hard to make it financially work, so therefore that's to me what's very sad about that side of it, because people need to develop, and to be able to do that, they need to be able to live. That's why people should buy music and not download for free, because it's cheap anyway. You wouldn't go to a bookshop and just take the book, so don't go and download it for free, because you know, music is such a big part of people's lives, you know, but if you don't let young talent and people develop and find great things, then we all kind of miss out on that, and that's such a big part of life for everyone. So I think, I hope that more stuff can start coming out of Jamaica that would also take reggae forward in a slightly more positive way maybe than the kind of R&B influenced of the last decade or so. I would say it's pretty, you know, there's not that much positivity in it. It's kind of, you know, get money, get paid, you know, check girls, and not that any of these subjects are new, but there's a bit of a lack of subtlety about any of it, and maybe that's just the modern world as well. But I think reggae needs to move forward. I think it needs to move forward musically as well. I think that's an important part of it, personally, musically and lyrically, to uplift, and I guess sound-wise it will develop as different influences come in, but that will come from younger people than me, you know, and that's how it should be, you know, and not that it's like, oh yeah, you know, look at dubstep, you know, let's not, you know, where's all that from? You know, we know where that's from. That's directly, where's all that, yeah, building up for the big drop, well that's just sound system stuff, end of. It's not really that different. The choice of sounds is different, and the beats are a bit different, but even the beats ain't really that different, you know. Just the sounds are maybe different, but you know, I think that will remain to be seen. But I guess just sonically, it will evolve how it involves the influences that come in. But I think the musical side of it is really important. There's some exciting singles coming, some tracks from Cornell Campbell, from Little Roy, from Frankie Paul, from Carleen Anderson, from Lou Rhodes, from Mikey General. There's going to be a couple of reissues of quite sought after old records, and I think there's going to be some kind of, hopefully, a little bit of genre breaking and pushing it all a bit forward.